Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today to talk about how you can supercharge your Drupal experience with Yext AI Search. I know we waited a few minutes just for some people to trickle in, and maybe some more will join us in a few minutes as well, but we can get started. So our agenda for today, we're going to introduce who will be talking to you for the next hour or so, and then we'll go over the Drupal integration, just give a brief overview before we get into a full end-to-end demo of how Drupal and Yext work together, and then we'll definitely have time at the end for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to get to them at the end. Cool. So, hi everyone, I am Dana. I'm a solutions product manager here at Yext, and I helped build out the Drupal integration.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I'm also a solutions product manager at Yext. I helped a little bit with the creation of this app, but I'm going to help demo it today.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Cool. So let's get right into it. So how do Yext and Drupal work together? And we're switching to white, so sorry if that hit your eyes in a way. So the first part of the Drupal and Yext integration is getting the data from Drupal into Yext. And we want to do that so that we can then use the Drupal data within an answers experience or any other Yext products that makes sense. So we've built 5 Drupal data connectors that pull in the 5 built-in Acquia CMS content types. So if you are using Acquia CMS, these names might be familiar to you. If you are not, you probably have other different content types set up on your site, and have no fear, these connectors will still be a great starting point for you to pull in any data that you have on your Drupal site. Next up, after you've pulled in your data and you've built your answers experience, we also have a Drupal module that makes it really easy to place your search experience on your Drupal site, and we'll show you how that's done as well. So what both of these things combine to make is a wonderful site search experience on your Drupal site. So once you have all the data from your Drupal site, you have the module that makes it really easy to add to your site, then you have a wonderful site search experience that makes it easy for anyone coming to your website to find what they're looking for. And just to put it all together, so we have the data coming from Drupal. That's going to come into Yext, into our knowledge graph, and they'll all be stored in there as entities. Then from there, we will build out a search experience using Yext Answers. Then we'll add the experience to your Drupal site. And then voila, we have site search at the end. So Matt and I are going to walk you through this whole thing right now. And don't worry if maybe we go a little bit quickly, or there's a step that maybe you don't understand. Feel free to ask a question in the chat, or you can always afterwards ask a question in the Hitchhiker community, and we'll make sure to get back to you there. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt and stop sharing my screen for the first part of the demo.
Excellent. Thank you, Dana. I am going to share my screen now and show you my Yext account. So here we are, logged in. What we're seeing right now is the app directory. So these are all of the integrations that we have, because they are some of the newest. Drupal is right toward the bottom. And as you can see, we have a page connector, a place connector, a person connector, an article connector, and an event connector. And even though these are the 5 built out ones we have, these are not the only entity types that we can pull into Yext, as I will show you in a little bit. But to start out, I am going to pull in some articles. So when I click on this Drupal article connector, it's going to redirect me to the main page of the Drupal article connector, where we have some information about the app, some installation instructions, where we have actually linked out to a hitchhiker guide in case you want really in-depth details about how to do this, or any kind of reminder, some details about the integration, links out to the customer support and developer website. But why don't we go ahead and click install? So you'll see right here just all of the resources that are going to be added to the account configuration. I will click next because we are okay with that. And then the only information that you will have to provide in order to bring these articles into the account is your Drupal domain. So for our purposes, it's going to look like this. I'm just going to copy it in. And you just want to make sure that you don't have any slugs at the end of this. You just want your domain name and that's it. Once you do that, you will click authorize, and we're going to be redirected to the connector page. And just like that, we have 6 new entities that are all articles, all pre-configured with new fields. We can check them out in the knowledge graph right now. Look at that, how beautiful. Let's take a look at one of these Drupal articles. We can see the body of the article right here with rich text. We have a landing page, we have a name for the article, and we have an entity ID. Now, if ever you want to say add new fields or pull in new information, you can always do that just by going into the connector configuration by clicking edit. And you can specify new selectors based on the API call. So if, let's say, you wanted to pull in, the date that it was created, or you want to pull in some other information here, you can always do that. The only information that you'll need to know for this is you want to add the fields as part of the entity type before you pull them in. Great, so we have articles, but we want to pull in something else. Let's go back to the app directory for a second and try pulling in Drupal Pages. Okay, so here, just like the article connector, we have a lot of information, all of the resources that are going to be added when we install this connector. We will go ahead and click install, click next, paste in my Drupal domain, click authorize, and once again, we'll be redirected to the page connector. And now we have 14 new entities, which are actually pages from the Drupal site. So we can take a look at these just like we did with the articles. We have an About Us page with the Drupal description, a landing page URL. And keep in mind that all of these you'll be able to upload to your answers experience, as I will show you very soon. But let's say I want to pull in an entity type that is not a page, article, person, place, or event. That is not one of the pre-built connectors that we have. How will I do that? So it's very easy. The first step would just be to enable an entity type that you would like to pull in. So I know that my Drupal site has FAQs. I am going to go into my entity type configuration, enable my FAQ entity type so that I'll be able to pull them in, hop back to the connector screen, and I'm just going to duplicate one of these connectors. So I'll do that by clicking on this drop down right here, clicking duplicate. And you see now we have a copy of the connector. I'm going to go in just so that I don't get confused and rename this Drupal FAQ connector. I'll change the ID of this connector as well. Drupal FAQ connector. Click save. And now I'm going to want to edit the configuration so we actually pull in FAQs and not pages. So you can see here the options for the different entity types we can pull in. Going to select FAQ. And this notice right here is just telling you that because we're switching entity types, we can no longer pull in the exact same fields as we did for pages, which is fine. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to click remove mappings and change entity type. And then on the next page, I need to change the request URL where I'm getting this data from because we don't want it to be pages anymore. You will have to choose the node that FAQs are associated with on your Drupal site, which for us is just FAQs. So if we repull this data, we can see that now our raw response includes questions, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. No need to change anything else here. This is all pre-configured for you. If I click continue, selectors will be pulled in as fields. And so what I'll do right now is just update these to be accommodating FAQs rather than pages. So I'll look into the raw response. I'm going to find what the JMES path is for the actual question. So I see it's right here. Where do you have offices would be our first one. And that's nested within attributes, field question, and value. Now, if you don't really understand what I'm talking about right now, that is completely fine. We have plenty of hitchhiker guides, and you can always ask questions in the community about how to get to these different selectors and fields. Field underscore question dot value, and I'm going to rename this header to question. And look at that, we have our questions right there. How incredible is that? Now, I'm also going to obviously need to pull in the answers to these questions if we're going to populate them as FAQs on our answers experience. So we have the question is, where do you have offices? And we have the answer right here. We have offices in Boston, Massachusetts, Catonsville, Maryland. Come visit us. So I just need to write in the JMES path for this answer, which would be under attributes, body, and value. So I'm going to switch the description and call it the answer. And this is actually the same field as we had before for description, which is totally fine. So now we have our question and we have our answer. So why don't we go to actually map these fields? So we can see the entity ID is mapping correctly. That's great. I want to map the question to the question field, which is required for FAQ entity types. And I would like to do the same for answer. I'll click save and I will run this connector. And just like that, we have 3 new FAQ entities. And we can see them in the knowledge graph right here. These are pulled in from my Drupal site. Super simple, very easy. You can always go in, add more fields. You can make these very robust entities if you want them to be, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we just wanted it to be nice and clean. And so now what we'll do, now that we have all the entities that we want to see in our knowledge graph, what we can do is go and make an answers experience out of this. So I'm not going to do the entire thing from scratch. If you want some information on that, you can take a look at the Hitchhiker's Guide. There's plenty of information on how to build an answers experience. I'm going to hop into a different account just so I can show you what it might look like to add one of these Acquia verticals onto an answers experience. So click out of this. And let's say I'm trying to add FAQs. So this is basically a duplicate of the other account we saw. I have these FAQs right here that I've just pulled in from my Drupal site. And now what I'm wondering is, how can I add these to my answers experience? So there are 2 steps. The first would be to build it, to add it in on the back end. So I'm going to go into answers experiences. And this is if you have one already built out. I'll go into verticals and add a vertical. Now, which one are we going to add? FAQs. Perfect. I'm going to click save and we're done. Now I just have to add it to the front end of my experience, which, if you're familiar with answers, takes place entirely on this Pages tab. Here's my answers experience. We'll hop into the code editor, which is just where we can make changes to our answers site. Edit right here. And now a little tip is, if you go into tools and then click Jambo commands, you have all of these really easy ways to make some changes to your answers experience. And what we want to do is add a vertical. So I'll click add a vertical. The name of the page is going to be FAQs, and the vertical key is just going to be lowercase FAQs. This I know from the answers backend and is determined there. So you can always hop in there and just check out what your vertical key is. For our card name, we want to choose the FAQ prefigured one called FAQ accordion because they'll link out to the answers. For a page template, we're just going to go with vertical standard, nothing too fancy. And when I click submit, it's going to execute this command. And then you can see that we've staged these changes to add the FAQs right here. So if we check out a live preview, boom, we have our FAQs. Who is your new search partner? Here at Acquia, we're excited to be partnering with Yext, as are we. Where do you have our offices? And then all of this information has been pulled from our Drupal site. So if I look up something like locations near me, We can see the locations that I've added with the Drupal place connector. All of these were pulled in. If I want to look at my articles, oops, I'm not going to have any results if I just do locations near me, but we can see our articles are surfacing. We can look at our pages, and you can pull in essentially any entity type that you would like to see. So with that, now that we understand how to pull in data from Drupal into Yext and how to apply that to our answers experience, we want to learn how to embed this answers experience onto your Drupal site. So without further ado, I will pass it to Dana, who will walk you through the steps on how to do just that.
Amazing. Sorry, I lost my Zoom for a second, but cool. Thank you, Matt. Great. So now we're moving over to Drupal. This is a demo site from our friends at Acquia. So we are using Acquia CMS in this case, but this is still built on Drupal. So everything that we're showing is applicable if you're using your own version of Drupal and however you've built your site. So we are on this homepage for this website that we have. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click extend, because this is where we can add all of these different modules and other things to our website that make it easy for us to do cool things. So I'm just going to filter to Yext here. And great. So Yext AI Search is already living in this site. But if for some reason you went here and you typed in Yext and you didn't see it, that's okay. You can just go to the Yext AI Search module on Drupal.org and install it from here. So we would just scroll down to the bottom and install it and then add it to Drupal after. We got lucky and got to skip a step. So it's already in here. I'm going to click check, and then I'm going to install. And one other reason that you would come to this page for the Drupal and Yext integration is what Matt was using in order to pull in the data from Drupal into Yext was something called the JSON API, which is a core module that's within many Drupal accounts. So if you did come to extend, you should be able to see the JSON API here, or you could install JSON API, but we are using the JSON API module in order to pull in that data. So this was already turned on in this account, which is why Matt was able to pull in the data from this website. But if for some reason you run into errors, and this is in the guide, so you don't need to memorize anything I'm saying, just make sure that the JSON API is turned on as well. So we have both Yext AI Search and the JSON API enabled. So now we can go over to content. So I actually did this right before the call, but we do need to create a search results page on your site if you didn't have one already. This site didn't have one, and I wanted to create a new one. So I just created a new page that I called search results. And this is so there's a search results page. So when someone searches for something on any other page on your website, they're directed to a search results page where they can see all of the results. So we just created a page in Drupal called search results. Now that that's all set up, I'm going to click on structure and block layout. And I have looked at this site before, and I see that we have tabs in this content section, and there's all of these other different sections. But to show you what the tabs look like, the tabs are what's appearing up here. And I think to design my website, I would want the search bar to go right below that. So I'm going to go back into Drupal, and I'm going to click place block. Once again, I'm going to search for Yext. And then we have two blocks that were installed when you installed that Yext AI Search module, the Yext search bar and Yext search results. So in this case, I want to put the search bar on my homepage. So I'm going to click place block. The title is Yext search bar. You could change this to anything. It doesn't have an impact on what you do. But I also know I don't want it to display the title on the page because there's enough on the page already. So for the API key, I'm going to pull in these values from the answers experience that Matt just made and we just looked at. So the API key is this, and then the experience key is this. And you can find all of these in your Yext account and in the guide as well. It tells you where to look for these things. Our version is production. The account ID is this. And then I know our answers experience is in English, so our locale is English. And then the redirect URL is going to be that search results page that I created before. So I'm going to copy the base URL from here. And then I've already done this, as you can see, it's giving me the history. So we can just do /search results. So that means when someone searches in the search bar, the answer is going to show up on the search results page. The search placeholder value is just what a user will see when they open the page for the first time and just see that search bar there. You can make this anything you want and get as creative as you want. I'm just going to keep it as search for now. Cool. So now we're getting into the visibility section. And I know that I don't ever really want two search bars on the same page. So I'm going to put the search results page here and say I'm going to hide it on the search results page, because on the search results page, we're already going to see a search bar and the search results just by the nature of the block that's going to appear on that page. So we can just hide this for now. We've already chosen it's in content, and then I'm going to save the block. Cool, that worked. So now if we go to the site, and this is just in an incognito window so you can see what it looks like, we should see our search bar appear right there. Awesome. So we have this placeholder. Afterwards, if you wanted to make this smaller, or that's what I would do, or any other sizing or customization that you want, you can do that afterwards. But we can see that I could type in articles here or something. But this is going to the search results page that I just haven't made yet. I haven't added that search results block onto it yet. So there's nothing here appearing. It's just a blank page. So let's go back in here and now add the search results block. So I'm going to type in Yext again, place block. And then in this case, you're going to grab the production URL of your answers experience. So for the one that Matt made, this is what the URL is. And then I'm once again going to restrict it to just the search results page, because I only want the search results block to appear on the search results page. Cool. So that was only one field to fill out. That's always nice. And then we'll click Save Block. Cool, that worked. So now if we come back here, I'm just going to refresh this for good measure. But if I type in locations on the East Coast, we're going to get our results. And oops, I forgot to remove that title, but we know how to do that. So I can remove that right now. But we got an answer right away. I don't know how long that took, but it was pretty fast just to set up our search bar and search results. And we don't have search bars on this page. So let's go back into here and just turn that off, uncheck the title just so it looks a little bit nicer, but then we're all set to go. Amazing. Cool. Okay. So back to our presentation. Great. So I know that Matt and I just went through a lot of information, and some of it might be new. I know the data connector framework is a new framework and a new feature product within our account, or within Yext. So if that was new information, I definitely recommend maybe looking at that guide that I posted in the chat, or going through the hitchhiker guide. It links out to all the necessary places that you would need to get more information for. So this is here for you, and definitely something to use as a good resource. As well, if you're interested in getting a demo or already talking to someone at Yext about setting this up on your Drupal site, you can go to yext.com/integration/Drupal, or you can just type in Drupal in the search bar on yext.com, and you'll get to this page. You can get a demo and someone can help you start building or answer any questions you have about how you can set this up for your account. Great. So with that, are there any questions that anyone has for the chat? Definitely don't be shy. I'll wait like 30 seconds. Cool. So we have one question so far, a question about which versions of Drupal does everything support. So as long as you are on Drupal 8 or higher, that the Yext AI Search module that you will put on your website will work. So Drupal 8 or higher, you should be good to go. Cool. And then there's another question. Is there anything to do with analytics? How can we see queries? Matt, do you want to take that?
Sorry, yeah, I would love to. Can you tell me where the question is? Well, oh, where can you see the queries? Well, Yext has very fortunately a robust analytics platform where you can see all of the queries that you might get. And you can run all kinds of analytics on that too. Look at things like total searches. You can look at, entities that have not gotten any searches or anything like that. And you can look at your knowledge graph response rate over time. You can look at your click-through rate, all different kinds of metrics that are really helpful for understanding how people are interacting with your answers experience and what insights you might want to take away from it.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Great. And then there's another question about the difference between Yext AI Search and what built-in search is already. I know Acquia uses Solar, but the big difference between Solar and Yext AI Search is that Solar is ultimately index-based searching. So Yext AI Search is different because our search is structured and based all of the data that's in your knowledge graph, and we will deliver direct answers instead of just blue links. So that's the big difference there. But if you have more questions about the differences between Yext and other search vendors, definitely head over to that Drupal integration page and click get a demo.
I'm seeing a question here where someone is asking that their Drupal site is multi-language and they're wondering whether we can support that. Dana, do you want to take that?
Yeah, for sure. So what's great about Yext and about Drupal is that you can build your Yext knowledge graph or your Drupal site in any language. So I know Matt and I just demoed everything in English, but if you have data on your Drupal site that's in German or French or Japanese, you can pull that data into Yext. If you're into Yext in any of those different languages. And then we would just create multi-language answers experiences, one for Japanese, one for English, one for French, one for German, whatever languages you have. And then you could input those answers experiences onto your Drupal site for whichever site is for that language. So there's no language limitations here. If you have data in different languages, you can definitely pull that in and still take advantage of everything. Cool. So I don't see any more questions, but if anyone has anything else that comes up or you try testing the connectors out, definitely feel free to reach out to the community. Great question, Ethan. So Ethan just asked a question. How well does this support Drupal multi-sites? I.e. search across many sites or search in a specific multi-site only. So right now, as far as I know, the module will work, I think only within a specific multi-site, but I am going to double check that for you and see if you can do search across the multiple Drupal sites. But at the same time, you can use the data connectors to pull in all of the data from all of the Drupal sites that you have. So if you have 10 sites under one, you could pull in the data for all 10 of those different sites. And then all of that will live in your answers experience. And then you can search across all of that data. So depending on, like, it's not like a one-to-one, like you can only pull data from one Drupal site into Yext. You can pull data from any number of the multi-sites into Yext. And that's another kind of pro of Yext, is that we're not like, you can only have you can only have data from one source. If you say you had information in Guru or Slack or Confluence or any other source that you can possibly think of, there's a way to pull it into Yext and be used in your search experience. And so there's a lot of different ways to handle that. Cool. Of course. Thanks so much for coming. Great. Well, definitely feel free to reach out in the community. I recommend signing up to be a hitchhiker, and then you can find so many answers and so much more information about Yext there. And if you do have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out and one of us will get back to you. But thank you all so much for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.